going to start with a few questions for the artist, and I know that we're short on time, so I will just raise a few questions and then have it open for our audience. As an artist, you are a storyteller, and that's the descriptive that's used in your bio note. If that accurately captures your role, what are your responsibilities that are attached to that role as a storyteller, Adrian?
I think if possible to as I curate and co-create archives to try to undo the violence of the archives that came before me and came before this. And I think that there it has historically been a flattening of what Black is and what it ain't. And like how do I use my platform and the story and the things that ignite something inside of me that I want to talk about? How do I use that material to at least try to undo some of that?
Mm. Okay, so undo the violence. So that's an important and indeed an awesome mission. Um, when you think about undoing the violence, are there any filmmakers that serve as a model for you? And if so, why?
I would say I would say Marlon Riggs. I would say Arthur Johnson. I would say Marlon Riggs is in the case of representation and in his film Black Is, Black Ain't, like really diving deep into the ideas that society holds for what a Black person is supposed to look like, what they're supposed to believe in, and how they're supposed to present in the world, and really suggesting an alternative, um, and and just challenging what came before, and just with Arthur Jaffa, the way he breaks up and plays with time is something that I'm really interested in terms of montage and the conflict and the what it looks like to juxtapose, um, say, the quotidian with progress and what types of dialectics can exist within that juxtaposition.
Hmm. You focus in this work, as well as your forthcoming exhibition at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. Your grandmother is the focus of the film as well as the installation. Family stories are so personal, so intimate. Did you encounter resistance from any of your family members about family disclosure?
I
And
think
how did you handle that?
I think that, for instance, when I first wanted to start doing this work, I went to my grandmother's house, and my grandfather was still alive at the time. And I said, I want to take these pictures. I want to, interview y'all. And my grandfather, he was like, well, the house isn't together how I want it to be right now, and stuff is, maybe later. And so I didn't bring it up again. And I guess later on, him and my grandmother were laying in bed, and my grandfather brought it up in the middle of the night. I should have let Adrian take them pictures. I should have let him do, his project. He the only one who really interested in that kind of stuff. We should let him do it. And the next day, my grandfather died, and I didn't know that. I didn't learn this story until a couple months back when I was talking to my grandmother, and she told it. She's like, you know what? When you asked me to do it, I thought about what your grandfather said, and I said, you know what? I know this means a lot. And I think that she's just now grasping as she sees the work come together and seeing the family and the community respond to it, how important her story really is, not just to me, but to our people, not just, my family, but like our people.
Okay. Okay, so what's next on your agenda as a filmmaker?
I have a thesis film that I'm working on for my program. Also, my feature-length script made it to the final rounds of the Sundance Incubator Lab. So I've been got my fingers crossed for that, and just developing the stories out a little bit more, because like I said, I call myself a storyteller because I might not always choose documentary. I might not always choose photography. It might be performance or it might be narrative. And I think just continue to expand and spread my wings in terms of what how I express what the story is demanding.
Okay. I would like to make sure that we provide opportunities for everyone else. So, um, questions, anybody?
Hi, I'm Jackie, the photography director at California Sunday and PopUp Magazine. Hi, Adrian. Good to see you. Tell us about what we can expect to see at SF MoMA.
So the name of the show is, or the body of work is it's After the End of the World. Don't you know that yet? And so I worked with my grandmother, my mom, and my sister to just like really build this world that's talking about um, regeneration. It's talking about revolt, like what happens after wildfires. And so we're really digging into, like, even from the mediums that I'm choosing. Like I'm working with sculpture. Like I took these steel wool materials and created these theatrical wigs with my sister. And I'm thinking about how, like, the history of the hair show and how, like, these materials defy gravity. Like I remember growing up seeing my cousins and my mom, aunties, just their hair just going straight up, defying gravity. And I think that um there's a bunch of other like themes and things that I'm playing with, but that's something that stands out to me right now. So yeah, there'll be a short film, there'll be the sculptural pieces, and about 7 or so large scale prints.
Hi, Adrian. My name's Betty, and I actually grew up in Albany. Then I moved to the East Coast, and then I moved back recently to Oakland. And the thing that I think I'm realizing is how many people that I knew when I was growing up in the Bay Area in Oakland who aren't here anymore. And I loved your story because it moved me, because it felt like such a tribute to everyone who is from here and who continues to persist and be here, and everybody who's gone. What do you hope people get from your story or get from the story when they're encountering it? And do you even think about that, or are you just making it from a place of like something you have to get out there, or are you hoping that once people encounter it they feel some type of way or they take something from it?
I think for one, I fell in love with this process. Like it's something that I can't not do. I can't not film and talk and have these experiences with my grandmother. It's something I wake up if I'm driving from somewhere and I get an inkling in my head, oh, I gotta go see my grandma, or I gotta go see this person. If it's 10 o'clock at night or if they're awake or whatever, I'll go, I'll record, I'll take pictures, not knowing exactly what it might turn into, but just knowing that I have to do it. Um, and so it's just a part of, it's just something that I have to do, like breathing. But then in terms of how I want people to respond to it, I think and I hope that more people do something similar and start creating their own archives and curating their own archives with their family experiences, and like putting it in a space to where, you know, people who come after them don't forget who they are and what they come from. I think being able to go back and unerase, because so much has tried to erase, like, but to go back and reverse that pencil head and show that to my family and show that to the world, it feels revolutionary to me, because I know by talking to my grandmother, just the things that, you know, she didn't ask her elders questions because she was taught stay in a child's place, or, you know, it's some things you ain't supposed to know about and stuff like that. But some of that stuff informs who we are and I think can be valuable. And so yeah, I hope that other people do something similar. I hope that we start to create this collective self-portrait that, you know, we can keep passing on for generations.
Thank you. I love it. I love it.
Uh, Adrian, one of the things you indicated that your grandmother has 300 descendants, and that's a lot of people. And so she is the focus, I would presume, of a lot of attention. But you say you ask her a lot of questions, and then at the end of your film, you stated that the important work may be done 100 years from now. What do you mean by that?
I mean that sometimes I think we're like laying the groundwork for something we might not step foot in. And a lot of people don't see the change for the things that they fought for within their lifetime. And I don't think there's anything that makes, I don't think that makes their fight any less meaningful. And I think that sometimes with this kind of work, it might go a long time unappreciated by, by certain people or by the community, or just unknown or obscured to a certain degree. But I do believe, and I have this gut feeling that at some point it's going to play a very meaningful part in something, whether that just be my family or whether that be Oakland or, the Black experience, something. I just think it's going to play a meaningful part. But I know that I might not be around to see it, and that's okay. And it goes even like with it's a multimedia series. And so sometimes people are like, well, can I buy this image? Or can I purchase this image of, I think it's so beautiful, I want to live with this image. And I came to the point where it's like, I don't sell imagery, but I'll lease it. And the lease is for 100 years. And at the end of that lease, it has to be returned to my estate. And I think that the performativity in that kind of gets at this other thing that I'm trying to investigate about our culture and about our stories.
In thinking about our stories, and you are focusing particularly on family stories, especially the film. And you had mentioned something earlier about undoing the violence of previous archives that have been significant to our lives. Can you talk about your work as an archive in which you are dealing with the sociology of Black family life? And what truths do you think that you are laying bare for everyone to see?
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding your question. So you said what truths do I feel like I've come across during this project?
Yes, this project, and are you using your grandmother and your family as a way of uncovering or discovering or recovering, truths that have been, the image of the Black family has been so distorted and maligned, it has been subjected to violence itself. And yet through it all, we still manage to see family reunions, family uh, organizations and families coming together. And I'm just wondering, is there something, sociologically speaking, that you wish to address with your work?
I would say that it's interesting because my experience is that I was raised predominantly by Black women. And I know that the idea of the the matriarch is one that we should problematize to a certain degree because it flattens out who and what a Black woman can be. And so I think in other aspects of my work that aren't as based in documentary, like this film, that's what I'm trying to do, to problematize or to complicate social narratives that have come before in terms of the way that we look at or situate Black women in the family. Yeah, I guess that's what I would say.
Okay, thank you.
Adrian, I'm going to hop in and read a question here from the chat. We're wondering if you could give us your grandmother's name and spell it for us.
Tarifa.
And the spelling of her name?
She honestly, let me see. 1 second. I would have to ask my mom. I don't go around calling my grandma by her first name. So I know that it's not spelled how you think it's spelled.
That's a good enough answer, I think. Not spelled as you think.
Yeah.
Thanks, Adrian.
Tarifa Lewis.
I wanted to actually, say, Adrian, I'm such a fan of your process and love the way that you're weaving together these historical images with the family photos, and wanted to ask you about process when you're looking, through historic collections and kind of identifying things that might have a particular resonance. I mean, one of the things I think is kind of lovely is that you're using some images from our collections, from Slim Jenkins, who was a nightclub owner around Oakland, who came here from Monroe, Louisiana, and also has this kind of story of coming to Oakland from Louisiana. I'm curious that when you're going through these image collections, what sorts of things are coming forward for you, or are there things you're looking for? What's speaking to you?
One thing about when I'm going through like my grandmother's archives and like, old family albums and stuff like that, is that she's the only person alive who can tell me who these people are. And sometimes it's like she'll remember enough always to tell me their relationship to our family, but it's like there's also these things that I can't access, and stories that I just won't know. So as I gather more and more of these archives from grandparents who aren't here to tell me the stories anymore, I guess it's kind of like a sore spot for me to own these images of people that I know are related to me or I have this relationship with in some kind of way, but I don't know exactly who they are. Yeah, so I guess that just makes me wonder.
Well, it's a really beautiful tapestry. Yeah, thanks, Adrian.
I have another question if nobody has something. I was going to ask, you called out your time in the Marines in the film, and I was wondering if you started documenting before or after that period in your life, and if either way, did that time in the Marines color how you came back and saw, your Oakland life, or change kind of how you viewed where you came from?
I think that once it was interesting, like I went to the Marines and I lived in Japan. And then one day I was walking down the alleyway and it was like maybe 3 a.m. I was by myself and I had just started taking pictures. And this cool just washed over me and I realized that no police were gonna mess with me. Nobody was gonna shoot at me. Nobody was gonna rob me. Nobody was gonna do nothing. Like, and at that moment, I think I felt a certain level of safety that I have never felt before. And then I just thought to myself, like, dang, that's crazy. Like, I didn't know that existed. I didn't know that type of reality where I didn't have to worry, like these subconscious worries that I always had about my environment that I wasn't aware of, all came to forefront right then and there. And so when I did come back to Oakland, it was this kind of like having to fall in love all over again, because I had a new experience with the world and with life and understanding that, yeah, I had to fall in love all over again, I guess I would say. And I guess like working with my family and working with my grandmother helped me gain a new relationship with Oakland.
And so how would you describe Oakland prior to your going into the Marines in terms of, in the film you described that Oakland was everything that Louisiana wasn't. But when you became of age, you indicated that, you know, there's somehow the family that was, I mean, the setting that was so life-giving and life-affirming for your grandmother seemed to be taking her descendants away.
Mhm.
And so what portrait of Oakland would you paint prior to your induction into the Marines?
I would say that at the time, I saw through the eyes of a child, so I didn't think so many things were normalized, so as I'm, you know, losing childhood friends, or, a 13-year-old going to the, or 14-year-old going to the funeral of a 15-year-old who was murdered, it's like, you don't, I didn't see it as something that was abnormal enough because I didn't have anything else to compare it to. So by the time I did go to the Marine Corps and I traveled and saw other parts of the world and how other people lived, I had something else to compare it to. And then I saw the absurdity. I saw the contradiction. And for a moment, I was very angry with that absurdity, with that contradiction. And I think that, like I said, when I came back and I said, okay, well, how do I get my bearings? Like, I started working with kids in the juvenile hall system and mentoring them and teaching storytelling. And then I started documenting my family more, and I got this more long lens of history kind of thing going, where I understood like the systemic part of the problem and how it's impacted my family and my community. So I couldn't just hone in on my community and blame it or be mad at it per se. I had this more, holistic understanding of it all, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Um,
I have one more if I can. I'm gonna just jump in here if nobody else will. But as somebody, I do ask my family a lot. Like I'm the kind of historian of like, give me more info on our people. So are there any questions that were really helpful when you were trying to uncover those histories, or any questions that like kind of shut down conversation? Like when you're trying to investigate your family history, any advice?
I would say that sometimes, in my experience dealing with the elders, is that the direct question isn't always the question. Everybody's personality is different. But I might ask my grandmother, like, who cooked for you when you was growing up? She might, "What you mean who cooked for me? I cooked for myself since I was 6 years old." And it's like, oh, okay, what you used to cook? And then she starts on that conversation, and we just go through that. And somewhere in that conversation, there might be a gem that she drops on me. And that might be, 2 hours of talking, all to just get that one gem. And I may not get it on camera. I may just get the sound from it. And I think that that's okay. Sometimes if you're working with somebody, a family members, they might not be comfortable on camera, or they might not be the same person on camera. So you tell them, it's okay. I'm gonna just get your voice. And then they'll loosen up a little bit. They'll be a little bit more comfortable. And I think no matter what, I think the most important thing is to get the story, to get the experience, to understand it. And even if it's not with a camera, it might be a photo, it might be a camera, it might be sound,
I was interested in the symbol of your grandparents' house. And in fact, you indicated that if somebody needed a place to stay, they could come to her house. And what has that house come to symbolize to your large network of family members?
I think that it's rare as an adult that you can have a space where you can go and you can get something to eat if it's there. You can sleep if you want. If I go to my grandma's house right now for whatever reason, I just need to stay for a month, 2 months, a year, and or whatever, and I got to get back up on my feet, I know that nobody's going to tell me I can't do that. She's not going to tell me to leave. And it's just something like I don't feel like you can get that with many people or spaces.
Mhm.
And I feel like once it's gone, a lot of times as I'm experienced as I get older, it's just gone. Like people don't usually replace that. You can't replace that. Yeah. So I guess it signifies that. Oh, so it's my mom sent me the spelling. 1 second. THERETHER. I'll spell it in the chat. You can ask another question if you want.
Yes, getting back to the house again, the house as symbol, because in your film, the house plays a significant role. I mean, we see images passing through with the house as a ever-present background, and that was obviously deliberate. And I'm wondering if that's a statement on not only the longevity of your grandmother, but perhaps a symbol of family stability, a symbol of uh, a sense of stableness, and a symbol of growth as well.
I think for me, one thing that I wanted to touch on was that, on this street, there's all these Victorian homes, and all these Victorian homes, if I hear my grandmother talk about it, she's like, it used to be all these families on this block was Black families. The Chambers stay right here, the Perry stay right here, and these people stay right here. And there's so many stories housed in these homes. And what I wanted to do with the projection mapping and like focusing on that home was like bring out those stories and those moments and make them come alive again on the surface of these homes. And I think every house on that block has a similar story. But for the most part, there's not someone here or there that can portray it the way I'm portraying it for my grandmother, for our house, for our story. And I also think in terms of, journey, like you see my grandmother in the car, you see her getting ready for church, you see her doing her hair, like she's going somewhere. And I think that you can interpret that a lot of different ways too.
And speaking of journeys, you mentioned coming back to Oakland, and yet you see um, your family goes on journeys. They migrate. They move away from Oakland. And what is the symbol? I mean, or what is maybe the meaning of journeys to the larger family in your family, and maybe through you, how would we examine or look at our own?
So basically you're saying what's the importance of migration in
Migration, the idea of journey, the issue of movement, um, uh, the fact that we are always moving, yet there are some that are always returning home.
Mhm.
Or have you even thought about that?
I would I don't know if I thought about the question exactly like that, but I would say that I've definitely questioned what home means, or I've questioned what home means, and I've come to the conclusion it's much more of a where and when um, than a what. So yeah, I guess I had to revisit that one.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for answering nevertheless. I appreciate it very much. Let me let me turn to Rosalie. How is it that that pop-up magazine came involved, and why? And if you could share some of that backstory with us.
Sure. I can talk a little bit about PopUp Magazine, and then I can hand it over to Jackie Bates, who's our photography director. For folks who don't know, PopUp Magazine is a live magazine. So we partner with filmmakers and artists like Adrian, photographers, journalists, radio producers. And prior to COVID, we were touring the country 3 times a year. And here in Oakland, we would sell out the Paramount Theater. And we take our format, the inspiration is from a general interest magazine. So the way that you might flip through a general interest magazine, we try to recreate that live on stage. So in the moment of the pandemic, we had to switch very fast to creating digital content and creating our shows for the internet. And so we just released our fall issue, and we're really honored and excited that we got to work with Adrian on it. And the way that the issue unfolds is there's a new story every day of the week. So Adrian's story, Mama's Babies, closed out the week of stories, and all of our stories are free online. It's just popupmagazine.com. And then I'll hand it over to Jackie, who is our director of photography, who can talk about what it was like working with Adrian.
Hi. So I was introduced to Adrian by a fellow photographer in the Bay Area, Wissam. Do you know Wissam from Stanford, Adrian? Is that how you met him?
We went to SFAI together.
Yeah, and Wissam so kindly introduced me to Adrian, and I had seen Adrian's work before. I think I screenshot some of his images and put them on my desktop just as like, these are beautiful, I love them. And then after seeing a few clips of Adrian's work that he shared, I knew it would be so wonderful for pop-up. And of course, you know, doing some of those projections in person for a live audience would have been amazing. But I think they translated so well, the projection mapping on his grandmother's house. And I'm so thrilled that Adrian is a part of the PopUp Magazine family now, mostly virtual, but we'll hang in real life, I'm sure, at some point.
Hello. Hi, Adrian. This is Talia. I'm going to start my video, hopefully. I don't know if you can see me now. Hi.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Thank you. I'm new to Oakland and new to AAMLO, actually. Started last week. I would love to congratulate you for your project. It's amazing. I have 2 very simple questions, but I am very interested in knowing, first, how is your grandma doing these days? And second, if she had a chance to see the movie, and what was grandma's opinion, right, of the film, of seeing herself, of seeing her family in this project. Thank you.
Yeah, she saw the film, and she saw like other works that I've done, like installation wise and photography. They have her at the center, and I remember the first time she came in and she saw my installation, she sat down in a corner and she just got real quiet and she started to cry. And I went over, I said, "You all right?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm okay. And she got up, she walked, she sat down in the gallery space, and everybody was coming over to talk to her, and, you know, and she just got real quiet. And I asked her, I'm like, "Is it okay? Like, you know, something wrong?" She said, "No, baby, I love it." And that was that.
Great, thank you.
I've got one other question from the chat, which I'll pass along. Adrian, could you talk a little bit about the role church and faith played in a part of your grandma's life?
So, yeah, my grandmother is deeply religious. I've never seen anybody pray the way she prays. Like one time I got kind of scared. Like I walked in and she was laying down in bed and she was doing her hand like this from side to side, but she was on her back and she was mouthing certain things. And I said, Grandma, you okay? And then she never responds to me. If she's praying, she won't respond to nobody. And my cousin's like, oh, she praying. And I looked at her and it's like, I don't know. I just never seen nobody pray like that before. So yeah, I think it's fair to say she's a deeply religious and spiritual person.
Thank you for that.
You raised the question at the end of your film, do you know someone? And I don't remember the exact words, but you know, that have a lifetime of stories. And then you said, talk to them and then listen. Can you elaborate on that just a little bit more? The idea of listening to our elders, and what are we listening for?
I think for me, and I don't know why, but for me, I love listening to anybody who will talk to me. Like back in the days when we went to airports and flew around, like if I'm sitting next to somebody on the flight and it's an international flight, I'll listen to them and ask questions for 15 hours straight. And by the end of the flight, they won't know my name probably. They won't know where I am, where I'm from, just because I've been listening to them. And I think that listening in itself can be an art, and making somebody feel comfortable and letting them know that you hear them for the sake of hearing them, not for the sake of talking or having a retort. And so I think that you don't always know whether or not you're going to get, I guess, what you're looking for, if you're looking for something when you're speaking with the elder. But I think it's just as valuable to stay in the game and keep listening to them, regardless of if you get something that you thought you were looking for.
Well, thank you so very much. Let me state that I want to thank everyone for attending our broadcast today and for viewing Mama's Babies and raising engaging questions for our artist, Adrian Burrell. I also want to thank Roseli Iliano, and also I want to thank Jacqueline Bates, who are here today, and for their affiliation with this film and their work with AAMLO. Let me remind everybody that this month, October, is National Family History Month. And not that you should not engage your families or your family's elders throughout the year, but certainly this month is a time that we designate to call attention to that. Please go online to our Facebook page and see the stories that we are reading that focus on families and children within the context of families, and see some facets of the strengths that we hold as a population and our growth and development. Certainly, when I looked at Mama's Babies the first time, I was just, I was struck by what was said in those short 10 minutes. It was a lot, but I really appreciated the way your grandmother started the film. What are we going to talk about? Or you're editing that. And so that's the question that, you know, I would say that we end with today. What are we going to talk about? What stories are we going to tell? What stories are we creating today? How does it magnify our understanding of Black life and lore? And what does it, and how do we transform that into art? And I want to thank our artist, Adrian, for doing just that and providing us with this wonderful afternoon, a wonderful evening for an engaging discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm going to ask if Rosalie would like to have some final words.
No, just a thank you to you and AAMLO for hosting, and a thank you to Adrian. Adrian and I are almost like on tour together. We just did a really amazing Q&A with the youth at Bay Area Radio Coalition. Last week we did a Q&A with the San Francisco Chronicle's East Bay housing reporter, Otis Taylor, and today we're getting to talk with you, and it's just every single conversation I've been in with Adrian, it's just so inspiring, Adrian, to hear about your process, and I'm really looking forward to checking out the MoMA show. And I put the link, if people, you know, Mama's Babies is online as part of PopUp Magazine's fall issue. So since it's on YouTube, you know, please share with your friends, please share with your family. If it moves you, share with someone that you think would really feel inspired by connecting with stories around Oakland, or maybe, you know, stories that are about, you know, connecting with our elders and intergenerational storytelling and sharing. So just a big thank you to everyone. And I was going to say, I hope you have a great weekend, but it's only Monday. So I hope you have a great week.
And let me say thank you so very much. We appreciate the opportunity to work with PopUp Magazine and to be the beneficiary of this great program this evening, and to state that on one level, we are all storytellers. So let us be about the business of telling our people's stories, our family stories, our community stories, and in the process, bring a sense of perpetuity and a sense of meaning, of purpose to those stories. Thank you so very much, and please stay tuned for the next program offered by the African American Museum and Library at Oakland. Good night.